Ari, the biggest game of this next week is one that if I had told you 10 years ago that USC would be playing Oregon and it would be the CBS game of the week at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 12:30 local, and that it was in the Big Ten, what would you have said? Would you have had me committed? Would you have called the police?
If this was after you told me that Indiana would be a top 3 team, that Vanderbilt would be contending for the SEC title, I'd be like, that makes sense.
Wait, Texas A&M's undefeated? Oh, okay,
first thing you ever told me, it would be weird. But I will say this is a nice reminder that it sucks that the Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore. But the bonus of that is at least the Big Ten pillaged those West Coast teams enough to make these matchups still exist. So
yeah, this. I want so much for this to be like a classic Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly Pac-12 game. Well, it would have been Pac-10 back then with Pete Carroll versus Chip. But that is what excites me is this is not one of these teams going to play some Big Ten team style. Like they should be playing a really fun, like trying to out-athlete each other kind of style. And that's all you can ask for in a game like this with this kind of stakes, where if USC wins this game, they'd still have to beat UCLA, but they would be very much in the mix for a playoff berth.
When you zoom out a little bit and you close your eyes really hard, you can kind of make a case that this is the Pac-12 championship game because they're kind of both in a very similar situation in that they have to win this game to get in. I think Oregon is a tough spot. And we had a Bubble Watch video. A projection of the bracket video also on the feed where we discussed Oregon at great length and in the position they could be in if they lose another game. And of course, USC already has multiple losses, so they can't afford to lose another one. Whoever wins this game has a really good shot at making the CFP, and it might not figure into the Big Ten title at all. So,
but they also might, because remember, USC only has one conference loss, and Oregon only has one conference loss. So the winner of this game will still only have one conference loss.
Yeah. If Indiana, who plays Purdue next week, or Ohio State loses to Michigan, then, you're going to have to break out your calculator brain on who controls their own destiny. If I think USC, because they beat Michigan, still might
beat Michigan. Yes, they would be in good shape.
But still, it's a very big game that could determine a playoff spot while also not figuring into the Big Ten at all. And that is exactly how it would go if the Pac-12 still existed. So it's a little bit early. I'm trying to create like a championship West Coast pageantry vibe, and I don't want you to kill my vibe.
I don't think I'm going to kill your vibe, Kendrick. I think this is going to be a very fun game. I hope Oregon is full strength. I hope USC is full strength. USC played without a couple of safeties against Iowa, still managed to grind it out. Oregon played again without DeCorian Moore. They lost Gary Bryant Jr. against Iowa, so they played without him against Minnesota. Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end, did come back. So, one dynamic pass catcher was playing, but two dynamic pass catchers were not.
Sadiq is a really important piece of their offense, and in his return had a really big game against Minnesota on Friday.
Yeah. Now, if they can get DeCorian Moore back, who's their leading receiver, and then if they could get Gary Bryant Jr. back, then all of a sudden they can really stress USC's defense. USC's offense, meanwhile, will be stressing Oregon's defense with Mr. Mekhi Lemon and Mr. Jacoby Lane.
Yeah, they have. I'm over here looking at the stats page you have up, Andy.
I have the Oregon rushing stats up.
And I was going to say, Oregon's got a lot of good players on their team.
Noah Whittington is averaging 8.2 yards a carry.
Did you see the run he had on Friday night?
I don't know if you saw it. Beast.
Yeah, the way that beast. I don't know. Of course you saw it. The guy broke out of a pile, and you don't see runs like that very often. But yeah, you can make the case that USC might have the second best receiving core in the entire country. So
behind Ohio State. Yeah. I think that would be I don't think that's a bold statement at all. And Mekhi Lemon, every game you see him, he just amazes you some more.
Yeah. I mean, it's a first round draft pick, and I think if you ask some USC fans if he's better than Jeremiah Smith, you might get some yeses. And I think that's insane. Maybe it's not as insane as I think it is.
Who do we think is the better quarterback in this matchup between Jade Mayava and Dante Moore?
Man, Dante Moore had some dimes on Friday.
He did, but Mayava has done it all season. Yeah. Now, look, playing against Iowa is a struggle for any quarterback, but
I mean, they both equally struggled.
He still did a good job. Right. Right. And then, but both of them had some pretty amazing throws like that.
Yeah.
The laser guided missile that Dante Moore threw that allowed them to get down the field to set up the game winning field goal at Iowa was huge.
Yeah. And then of course there's the feelings aspect of this, which is, coaches in very different positions, right? Like at one point, Lincoln Riley was Dan Lanning in the sport, the up and coming young, handsome guy that knows how to draw up an offense and is ballsy. And like, he kind of fell from grace a little bit the last few years. Like as USC, got off to a rough go of it the first few years there, like people started to question whether he should be the coach there. And, now Dan Lanning, who was the sweetheart,
the belle of the ball,
now kind of is, it's funny. Like he's having a good year. He's 9-1, but like, it's just,
I think the expectations were so much higher for them because they didn't lose a game last year until the Rose Bowl.
Yeah. And I still think too, that Oregon could just do the reverse of what happened last year, which is don't run the table in the regular season, fall out of the national spotlight, and then make a run in the playoff. Like, maybe that's their journey this year. I don't know. But Lincoln Riley is playing for something here that Dan Lanning has, and that he once had. Like, and that's an important aspect.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley has made the playoff before. Let's not forget he did it a bunch of times at Oklahoma.
I mean, you could make the case though that in terms of like trajectories of programs, this is a much bigger game for where USC is trying to go than it is for Oregon. Now, if Oregon falls short of their playoff goals, that would be disappointing. I was going to say, but
if Oregon loses this one, it could be a tricky one because Oregon is kind of in the Indiana spot from last year, where the schedule might have looked more daunting when the season started, but it actually hasn't turned out to be that tough. And they lost to the best team they played, and that was Indiana. So Indiana last year made the playoff at 11-1, would not have made it at 10-2.
Nope.
I'm not sure Oregon would make it at 10-2 with losses to Indiana and USC, the two best teams on its schedule.
Yeah, and if Penn State didn't fall apart, I wonder how differently we'd be viewing this Oregon team. I think they might be ranked higher than Texas Tech, which is something they're going to have a hard time with. They would be ranked higher than maybe another team in the SEC. Maybe you could make the case that they should be ranked higher than Ole Miss if Penn State was a top 10 team at the moment. And they're not, which has put them in a position where they have 0 quality wins. And
beating USC would be one. If USC probably finishes 9-3 if that's the case. And that's a good win. Like
it's a good win. It's not a great win. So
but Oregon needs to win this one. It will be very difficult to make the playoff if they don't. USC, really good shape if they win this one. And look, the way USC beat Iowa, that's the anti what we had come to think of a Lincoln Riley team. And that's a good thing. They were tough. They gutted it out. It was in the rain. Iowa jumped on them big, and then USC, I believe, scored the last 19 points of the game.
Well, all I want is a beautiful day in Eugene. I want it to be bright, and I want there to be colors everywhere.
I'm not going to check the weather.
Don't even put that evil on me.
I'm not checking the weather until at least Wednesday.
I'll
check the weather Monday when we do the pick show.
I read a column. You and I covered the last Pac-12 championship game ever.
Yes.
Together. And Chuck Culpepper from the Washington Post wrote a column saying farewell to the Pac-12 that I'm sure you read. It was one of the best written pieces I've ever read in my entire life about anything. And like in that piece, he said the Pac-12 was more colorful. And I think he might have meant it in both, like the way they play the game is colorful and that like it's wild and it's
there were a variety of playing styles, beautiful colors on the like this is a beautiful uniform color game. Yeah.
I just want it to be colorful. Both of these teams were dragged into the pits of Iowa hell the last few weeks. Let's get out there and feel like West Coast again. Be cool, be colorful, be fun, be exciting, and let's see who's the better team.
Yeah, play a beautiful game, and the winner will be in great shape.